the time. But yeah, so let's look at what's actually been going on from a fundamental perspective. Okay, so we are in extreme fear. Yesterday, when I checked this, we were still at 16, so it looks like we didn't move, which is interesting because yesterday we were in extreme fear. We didn't, but we went down all the way to like 74. So the fact that we're above 78 right now, and we're just sort of hovering between 77.5 and 79 is quite interesting. So that tells me that the sentiment isn't responsive or is not as responsive as we think it is, despite moving up essentially 5,000 US dollars since yesterday. Hey Vamshi, welcome. Now let's look at the liquidation map, and this is sort of what's gotten me in a bit of a pickle in terms of analyzing where the market's going. So on our 1 day, we basically have 1 to 1. It's not perfect 1 to 1, but basically the same amount of leverage on both sides. Price action is smack dab in between. And whenever you have a scenario like this, the US market open, which is in 29 minutes, always tends to just be chaotic. We'll probably get a swing down, then a big wick up, or swing up and then a big wick and then head down. It's one of the two. Or, just it takes a walk and we just chop. But I'm not liking the 1 day. Granted, the bias that I still have, and going into October and November, this is sort of the same strategy that we did, and we made gains going to the upside. I believe from November to December, sticking to this strategy, I was able to double my account. Grant, even with sort of that small move. So, anyways, um, we're looking at a ton of leverage on the upside with just a tiny smidge to the downside. But because you have these clusters down here, you could go all the way down to 74 again based on the 7 day. But there is greater incentive to head to the upside. Hey, welcome. Sorry, your name's truncated, but I love. I can't tell if that's a tree in your profile picture, but thank you for joining. I am Langestrom, and if you have any questions, just let me know. So let's look at the 30 day, and this one's rather interesting because you can see that in terms of leverage, we span all the way down to 67,000. Now, I did say we could go down to 69K because that is where our macro Elliott wave projections are telling us we could go. But you can see there's not a lot of leverage clusters there. They're all sort of packed all the way to 72.5. Does that mean that 69 is not possible? Not necessarily, but it is interesting that our clusters are closer to current price action, and you can see prices right here. You have clusters to the downside, but these clusters to the upside, those spread out, are going to be better for market makers because they can guarantee that they'll be able to make money if they go to the upside right now. 90 days, same story, and the further up we go, it sort of becomes the same story. The 1 year may have, and you can see here, the 1 year does show that you could go down as low as 69. That's sort of um, the most significant leverage cluster here, but you can see that all the way up to 110, there's greater incentive to head up. Let's look at the RSI heat map. So let's look at the 12 hour. We can see that most coins are weak and it's pretty decent spread. And the big three, BTC, Solana, Ethereum, as well as something like BNB, ADA, Doge, these guys are hanging out in weak or oversold territory. So from a relative strength index perspective, it does want us to head up because of exhaustion. Same thing with the 24 hour. Let's look at the 1 week. Yeah, it's about the same. So everything save for maybe the 4 hour is going to be 4 hour below is going to be neutral, but everything else, like your higher time frames, are going to be oversold. Looking at the liquidation heat map, and this is also interesting because it sort of corroborates the idea that we're going to get a ton of volatility in US market open. Notice how we have huge clusters on both sides and about the same um, total amount of liquidations or cumulative liquidations. Here in the heat map, you have um, again the same thing we see 24 hour, and you have a hotspot at 77 and a hotspot at 79. So that's sort of where we've been playing for the past couple hours. And, I do see us breaking top and bottom within the next 25 minutes, or after about 25 minutes we'll probably see it. So here on the 48 hour, you can see that there is sort of a hotspot, but the more significant one is to the top side. And the 48 hour, the 2 day, does show there's more cumulative long leverage. On the 3 day, that's when you have about the same again. Hotspots are now still at 79. Go to the 1 week. You can see that it's such a huge imbalance, and the hotspot puts us at around 84.8. 2 week, and it's over here from what I recall when I checked right before the stream. Oh, okay. So still at about 84, but you have tons of big clusters up here. So that about does it for fundamental analysis. I do think we're going to get a lot of volatility in market open, possibly pushing fear and greed index down. But other than that, it's basically our standard case of just trying to minimize risk. So let me stop sharing screen and let's head on to the charts, because that's the exciting part. Okay. So here we are in TradingView, not on TradingView, or in TradingView. And I think we should actually look at where we are in the macro Elliott wave. So I know I did post something, but at the very least, something I found interesting is that technically we didn't close below the dynamic reactor, and call it copium or just maybe a stubbornness, but that is interesting that we just barely closed, or we were so close to closing below it, but we didn't actually close below it. So we're sort of being held up by the dynamic reactor here on the 1 week. So this is the Binance chart. I specifically use Binance because it has the most information compared to the other exchanges, even though I trade primarily on Blowfin. So this for me is a more accurate representation of how the market's doing, because of the fact that there's more history. So our CPO plus and our MVP ribbon's going to be better tuned. And we can see that we're sort of trying to get above where we were back into the channel, but until then our retest is about 82. So I'd put an alert here at 81. What is this? 81.8. See what happens when we get there. If we get a sharp rejection, then I am going to frame some shorts. But we did stay within the liquidity block, right? This was the fall of April 2025, so a whole year ago. We're back here, which is interesting. You'd think that, oh, sorry, didn't mean to remove that. But in any case, it does look like we are still deciding if we can get above this candle. That would be fantastic, but honestly, it'd take a technical miracle for that to happen. And we do have our 1 week retracement right over here. So let's go into the more micro setting. And right away, so I was just playing around with the charts for a while, and I saw sort of this bullish pennant here on the 30 minutes. So if this plays out, right, we could see a 82.8 Bitcoin tonight, or I'm guessing for you guys it'd be the morning. We could see something like an 82.8 Bitcoin. Now, do I think that's possible? I mean, anything's possible, right? You have good money flow. You are breaking above the fluid zero line again. But you do have resistance in the form of our quantum and dynamic reactor. But hopefully that's not going to influence. Let me just draw this a little better. But let's just see how it plays out, because every time we touch the dynamic reactor here on the 30 minutes, we got rejected. So over here, over here, over here, so that was a double top. But you could also argue that this is a double bottom right here, right? So it's very interesting to see. Now we are getting rejected here at the quantum reactor, but there's still 20 minutes before we fully decide what we're going to do. And the point of control is really just keeping us afloat right now at our price level. And, the past hours have just been sort of a roller coaster ride, really just chopping, right? This isn't really that meaningful. Now, if we go down to the likes of Ethereum, here on the 15 minutes, we see that we are in between reactors, which is a no trade zone for me. I wouldn't trade if we're in between these reactors. That said, another thing that I noticed while we are in Ethereum for the 15 minutes is the fact that we do have, I don't know why it didn't load, but this is sort of a channel right here. So this is a descending channel, and because you have trend line, you could argue that, or you could use this as a projection point of escape. That does put you back at about 2.5, and that would look like a double bottom here on the 4-hour chart, right? So it does look like we could have a bullish we could have a bullish Tuesday, but I guess for you guys it's a, oh no, it is Tuesday. Yeah, we could have a bullish Tuesday, but we have to be careful because of what the fundamentals are telling us, which is that there's liquidity on both sides. You want to take out the downside first before you go with the upside. And I mean, you can break out of this pennant right here. You can go down here and then just wick back up, and that would still be within the pennant. Because I'm sure a lot of people, when they saw this massive wick to the upside, they probably took a long right here. They're in profits, and then they probably put a stop loss here, or even here below that wick, and just they're hoping for the best. But the 4-hour does look good. You're getting above your zero line on the CPO plus. You're even about to test your fluid zero line here on the MVP ribbon. Let's look at Solana. So we do have a long on Solana at about 110. So we are in drawdown. That said, we managed to stay afloat with a 95 SL, like, surprisingly. But we are in drawdown, and 110 does look like it could be resistance. That said, if I zoom out into the 1 day, I do think that there is a target for higher than 110. Let's see here. There should be. Yeah, it's about 120. So FVG as well. But I am worried about the fact that, wait a minute. No. Oh, that's funny. Negative 80. I don't know if that's even possible. No, it's like negative 75. Really? That's the target for Solana? 1 day on a descending. Can a coin even go to negative? Is that possible? Doesn't it just end at 0? Okay, interesting. But yeah, looks like we could go to about 120 based on the 1 day. So let's go into scalping mode for these. Oh, hey Daga, welcome. I hope you had a great weekend. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, although I don't know how wonderful this is exactly. Oh, Daga, before I leave Solana, look at this. Market Dynamics is saying that measured move for Solana is at negative 76. I'm buying down the road. I know. I don't even think that's possible. Doesn't it just end at 0? It just ends at 0. I don't think you go to negative 75. I don't think that's possible. But in any case, that's just a projection. I don't think Solana can. I mean, it can most certainly go down to when it started out. A $20 Solana, that would be fun, right? But I don't think it can go to negative 70. It doesn't make sense. I'm pretty sure a lot of businesses are also holding Solana now. So, at negative, How do you buy negative though? Don't you just lose money if you buy negative? Yeah, you just lose money, right? Because if you buy one Solana, you're basically selling $75 if it reaches negative 75. I don't know if you can you buy, how does that work? How do you buy a negative coin? Anyways, that's not for me to ponder right now. I mean, how could be interesting? I mean, we did have a successful long on Tau, and it is in a falling wedge on the 1 day. It does look like it has a little bit more downside in the tank, right? Because of the MVP ribbon. But if you break out on Tau, you could possibly go back to all-time highs. Back to about 720. That wouldn't, or even higher. That wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, let's see, 15 minutes till market open. Is anyone trading like a coin right now that's not something I'm looking at? Or actually any asset class? Actually, I kind of want to look at gold. So, looks like we just entered the short early, right? We entered around here, and then we got stopped out. Now, could have if we had entered back, or yeah, this is what I was envisioning when we got here, but it sort of happened later. But if we got back to our entry around here, we'd we'd have been able to hit our take profit around here. So that would have been cool. Um, but let's go to the 1 day, see how gold's actually doing. Because again, this is what. Oh, long wick to the upside. Heavy money outflow. Yeah, checks out. Hit the chick magnet. What's this? But this is somewhat extended. Uh, we could see sort of we could see like possibly see gold keeling over again, but only time will tell because this is a bullish close right here. So if you guys do trade precious metals, it's possible that gold recovers just a little bit, but then it could double top. This is rather disgusting. But Dag, I guess it didn't leave a topping candle like we wanted, right? I don't think it did. This right here would have if people were only looking at the 1 day, this would have been sketchy. They'd be like, oh, okay, buying pressure, and then nope, just gone. Look at silver. Silver really fell. We should have shorted silver because at the time, at the time when we were shorting gold, silver was about over here as well. So we could have just entered silver instead and gotten the right result. But you know, is what it is. We have 10 minutes before market open. So right now, I'm going to just quickly check which coins were heavily oversold. So I see Arbitrum, Gala. Which one is this one? Uni, BNB. So I kind of want to look at those coins real quick. Excuse me. Okay. Yeah, let's look at BNB first. So 1 day oversold. Check out the 5 minutes here on the 4 instead of the 4 hour. Interesting. So we did fall below. Okay, so we're playing around with the point of control right now. BNB. So it did fall below the point of control here, but we are retesting it. And we do have a support line here at 772. It's possible on during market open that we could like fall over here. I might take a scalp long, or just like a very small long position around this area, right? It could just be like a quick move to the downside and then back to the upside. So let me just quickly review sort of where the liquidations are for BNB. Okay, let me share screen so you guys can also see what I'm looking at. So 24 hour BNB, so one day, puts liquidation or hotspots about 796, right? With hotspot or with potential areas of entry at 759. So if we go back to what we had earlier, so about 770, it does say that you could potentially go even lower. So if I bring this down to like 759, okay, that makes sense from a 4R point of view, right? This would be like a higher low back to this area right here. Something like this could make sense as like a position long and then stop loss below the previous week low. Oh, hey, stock scalping samurai. Let me look at chat. Okay, it's still that gives I buy at -80 for Solana. But yeah, and then going back to the thing, your liquidation map, it does say that we could or we want to head to about 795. So as an idea, right, if we're looking at this from an idea perspective, put a long there. Let's see this, and then it wants us to go to 795. Not exactly a good RR, but let's go 3-day perhaps. Okay, that's better. So about 810. You would hit the FVG, and that would be a pretty decent RR. Then if you go to the 1 week, it gets better. The place is the only hotspot on the 1 week for BNB is about 923. So so that's smack dab on resistance, or like one of the bigger resistances. So I guess just as an idea, we'll check back on this and market open. Something like this could also be rather safe. Check back on this and market open, but I guess right now I'm framing potential long entries that are lower because of the fact that the market's incredibly oversold. Yeah, we just keep playing around certain areas. So we have about 6 minutes till market open. So if there's any coin you guys want me to look at, or any like asset class you want me to look at before market open, just let me know, because 5 minutes before open, and we can get a good idea of what might happen. Of course, NASDAQ. Oh, not crypto. Okay. Let's see. Nope. Damn it. Wait. Okay. Which one should I use? Okay, 12 hour. I'm guessing this isn't the one. Oh, CME. Okay. Okay. Let's go to the 12 hour and then M and Q. My bad. M and Q. There we go. And then let us change this to 12. And then let's make this. Okay, let's see what we're looking at. So, there was a falling wedge according to market dynamics, and you did break above it, but you haven't hit your smart target yet. And what's concerning? Oh, hey Tekwo, welcome. It's been a while. I hope you and your family's doing well. But what is concerning for me is the fact that you did get technically a triple top right here. So by all accounts, you should break down, but you bounced off the reactors, and right now you're trying to get above your fluid zero line, and you're trying to head to the top, right? But you are facing a lot of resistance on the way up, and if I just delete these drawings here and maybe go to the 1 day, and then let's just try to clear it up for a little bit better. The 1 day, it doesn't look like it's on our side to be bullish. It looks like it wants to head down, but at the same time, you've really just been playing around this area. So you did make higher lows, right? This is a higher low, but then you kind of broke trend, made a lower low, but then you kind of made a higher low again, and then your trend lines have just been relatively flat. So I mean, you could draw a trend line from here to here, and that would make sense as well. So it is a rising wedge, which is more likely to break. You could argue that it's a ascending triangle, in which case that would be bullish, but because of this kind of shape, I wouldn't say that it's a ascending triangle. I'd just err on the side of caution. If you're gonna short this, that could potentially be something you could look at. The 1 day does want to head down. Maybe you can get more insights the higher we go. Yeah, I think you're gonna fall. I think you're gonna fall. I mean, you're starting to fall off on your fluid zero line. Excuse me. Granted, if you're basing it off the 1 week, then now you have an ascending triangle, right? If you're basing it off the 1 week, you now have an ascending triangle, which you could say means that it's more bullish because you're making higher lows while trying to knock on the door of resistance. You did it once, twice, thrice. So, this could break to the upside. It's possible you still keel down this way, though. Fill out the triangle even more, and as you get compressed, that's when you break. So just be careful. I mean, you fell out the fluid zero line. You are red. You're on the 1 week. Your chick magnet does say that ideally you want to be headed down. And yeah, I would say if you're planning to enter long, just wait, because I do think that lower time frames are framing or indicating that it's gonna go lower. But if you're gonna enter short, I wouldn't stay in that short for too long. Yeah, I am long on BTC. Yeah, I mean, personally, I do think we are headed up on BTC. Uh, in fact, if I pull out all chart patterns right here, it would say that you're headed up, right? The, even as high as this. But something I do need to make clear is that, I'm not a fortune teller, and you weren't here earlier, Tekwo, but if I pull out the liquidation heat map and look at their liquidation levels, you have basically 1 to 1. So liquidity cluster equals volatility. BTC price will just want to up, down. Or I guess that would be ab, auf, right? Yeah, I know a little bit, so it'll be like ab, auf, just to kill these guys, right? So yeah, just have to be careful. Mark this. The past few hours of BTC has just been chopping, right? It's just taking a walk right now with no clear trend. You are getting rejections here on the uh, quantum reactor, but every time you got a rejection, it's sort of followed up by a candle that goes toward it and then a rejection, right? So I'd just be careful. Let's just wait for. Oh, it's already market open. It's like, let's just wait for market open and IDK how many minutes, but apparently it's already open. So let's just watch the show. Uh, I also did want to look at, what was I looking at earlier? Not this one. I guess I removed it, huh? BNB, yeah, BNB. See if the idea potentially plays out. Something like this looks appealing to me. Oh, it happens to also be the 200-day moving average. Interesting. So let's just see how this plays out. So this is an idea, not an endorsement. We're gonna have to wait for it to be for confirmation before we do anything hastily. Okay. Hit 850 in 3 minutes. Oh, that was it? Wait, let's go back. Oh, wait. Oh, so did you end up shorting? You're very welcome. I hope that feeds you for today. Yeah, no problem. You're very welcome. Yeah, just don't stay in too long. I'd say just it. Your 1 week does look like you want to head up, so don't stay for too long. Okay. Uh, yeah, I mean, nice. Oof. Ooh. This is what I was sort of worried about because of that liquidations to the downside or the leverage. But at the same time, I do think it's going to want to kill some upside moves. And if this isn't proof enough with the wicks that it's leaving behind in the first couple minutes of market open, then I don't know what is. I mean, just look at this. It's disgusting. Up, down, up. In bullish div, went up, down, nope. And now it's up. Disgusting. Okay, let's frame this properly. Actually, let's look at one of our on-the positions. So, still in drawdown, but not as bad anymore, right? How much percent drawdown is this for Ondo? Okay, so I'm only about 12% down on Ondo. Oh, 13% now. So not anything too exciting. Yeah. Although, hmm. If this is a descending triangle, that's not good. That means we break to the downside from here. But it could. Hmm. Hold on, guys. I'll just get some tissue. Okay, I'm back. See how the BNB idea is coming along. Might be a decent idea. Oof. Yeah. Actually, let's go back to M. Yeah, M and Q. I mean, your 1 hour doesn't look that pretty, right? This is a higher low, but then the high isn't that great. Granted, this has now become a point of control, and your dynamic reactor and quantum. Your dynamic reactor is just there. Potentially, you could go down to as low as like 25.8. It's a good Bitcoin. Yeah. This was, again, this is what I am sort of worried about, and sort of what we expected, right? So it's always the reason why I like to check fundamental analysis, because sometimes on some days it's cut and dry where the market is more likely to go, right? Which is why on those days I'm able to scalp with you guys. But oh, welcome Kay. I'm Langstrom. Thank you for dropping by. Uh, but well, for those who missed it, when we were doing fundamental analysis at the start of the stream, I said, we could go down first, then we can head up. Right. It gets repetitive, and to an extent it gets a little bit, how do I say this? It kind of feels like we're just pulling shit out our ass, but then the point of the fact of the matter is earlier, and we can actually look at maybe how it's changed, if it's changed at all. Okay, so this is not refreshed yet, but we saw there's two huge clusters on both sides with almost a 1-to-1 ratio of cumulative long liquidations. And right now, with these clusters, you could see a 76 BTC, and you could potentially see an 80,000 Bitcoin in the same sort of 5 hours that we have. So if I refresh this now, it looks like we're going to kill the downside first before we kill the upside, just because of the proximity of current price to this liquidation cluster. So I wouldn't be surprised if we go 76, and then after we kill these guys, shorts pile in, then we come for the other cluster to the upside. So let's refresh. Let's go back to the charts, because that's the exciting part. And here, I mean, you're seeing huge wicks on these 5 minutes. It is currently in a downtrend, right? But note how we are oversold on the 5 minutes with bottoming bars. This trend line here is based on, I believe, the 30 minutes from earlier. Yeah, so it's based here on the 30 minutes. And gee, I was doing something like this earlier, right? And if we pull out all chart patterns, bullish pennant or bullish flag puts you about 84. Now, of course, patterns are just inefficiencies created by the order book to give fair value, but it's nice to know that there are some signs that point to the upside, and because we haven't closed yet, it's not a full guarantee that we break below this. Now, if we do break below this, then consider that bull flag just bye-bye, unless you head back inside. But it does feel like, or it does appear as though we get a little bit more downside just for a little bit longer. I think for another hour or so before we get any real upside. So do I think BTC is correlated? It seems like it could go to 50 or 90 in another 4 weeks. All right, that's a lot of questions. So I mean, is it correlated with anything? That's a very difficult question. I don't know if I have the expertise, but I mean, I have insights and guesses. So BTC, right? It's a speculative asset, much like gold and whatnot. But then compared to your more, right, it's a spectrum. So you have more stable, long-term hodling stuff like land and housing and gold, precious metals over there. Then you got crypto over here, right? It's definitely correlated with sort of liquidity cycles, like global money supply, how much money a person has, and the purchasing power behind that. It's also somewhat correlated to how well stocks are doing, right? But as of the moment, it's for me, it might be more prudent to look at crypto separately from a lot of these assets, just because of the fact that if you compare them right now at present, it's really not following any of your your other asset classes, right? Gold dumped, but then crypto was dumping long before gold took that massive plunge. And when I released the short for gold, right, that was a little early, but the fact of the matter is the idea was there, right? So I saw gold potentially dumping, but then Bitcoin was also dumping way before that, and gold was pumping, right? So there was sort of an inverse correlation at the time, but right now, with both of them sort of down, it's hard to say. So I don't think these are coincidences, right? There's definitely some bigger mechanisms at play, but it's really hard to suddenly say that, oh, this asset class is going up, that's why Bitcoin's going down. So if this goes down, Bitcoin's going to go up. It's really hard to say that. Um, but we take those data points and basically try to make sense of price action, because our brain likes to shortcut those things. But right now I'd look at it separately before or until evidence that it's correlated to anything becomes actually like impactful. Uh, Tom Lee saying it's retail's fault for buying too much gold and silver. I mean, can you really blame? It's smart. It's market behavior, right? It's market psychology. Most people will buy what's our retail is going to buy whatever is on the news, and they're going to buy whatever's in, and not really maybe do research behind that or be contrarian in nature. So for Tommy to say that, it's kind of I don't know, it's a little bit petty, but he's not entirely wrong. He's not entirely wrong. Um, so for those who are new here, I do have sort of a banking and economics background. So the fact of the matter is banks are counter cyclical in nature. They don't want to be pro cyclical, and we learned that in throughout history that when banks or financial institutions become pro cyclical, it, it gets dangerous for an economy. You're talking about um, the man. What was it again? Uh, how do I break this concept down? Okay, let's not get into concepts because this is an economics class. But essentially, it gets terrible for the economy. You tend to go into a spiral, and so financial institutions and national or federal institutions at that encourage or have mechanisms to ensure that financial institutions will go against the trend. So let me go back to the question and why I thought of that. So with the market sentiment right now, financial institutions are then in the mindset of possibly accumulating, because these guys need to make money. There's no bank that's a charity. They need to make money, and they need to have some sort of collateral in order to loan money out to people, right? Because if a bank or financial institution doesn't have any assets of any real value, they can't loan money out and then get interest from their loans. So right now, if I were a bank, I would be accumulating. If I had so much capital at my disposal, if I'm liquid, I would be accumulating everything from Bitcoin, maybe the top three: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Those are the safer ones, because a bank also doesn't want to be too risky, because if they need to use the discount, okay, I'll stop. But essentially, market sentiment, it's shit right now. It's an extreme fear. We saw it earlier. It's in 16, but in a bank's mindset, that's the perfect time to accumulate again, right? Banks are okay with taking a loss, and the market or market makers are okay with being irrational, right? All of our time frames, or all of our major time frames, are oversold, and we also see that across the RSI heat map. The market can stay irrational longer than you can stay liquid. We have to remember that, because we are regular individuals. We are like krill in an ocean. So, in an ocean full of whales, they can do infinitely more than we can. But we just have to sort of follow where they're going. And right now, it looks like we're gonna dump. um, but with 10 minutes on the clock and us just kind of going up and down, we have to wait for market close. To answer the next question, yeah, exactly. Banks get bailed out. Yeah, there's no really bailing us out, unfortunately. So the concept behind that's like too big to fail, because if a bank is has enough reach, the country cannot let that bank fail, or else it would lead to economic collapse. Yeah, bailed is the, yeah, bailed in is the right term. Will all assets be tokenized on the blockchain by BlackRock? I'm not sure, but uh, I don't know how ingenious it is to tokenize everything. Because right, the whole narrative behind real world assets is that, let's say, for example, BlackRock, they own a house. So the house has value because it's on land and they own the land, and the house itself, maybe it's a good property, right? So they can then tokenize that house and put it on the blockchain. So now they've basically doubled the value, and on the blockchain you can take like parts of that house. That's how real world. I mean, they're more technical stuff behind real world assets, but that's essentially what the narrative is trying to do. So there's really no stopping BlackRock from tokenizing whatever they have, right? Maybe the only difficulty or the only limitation is going to be time, because of course BlackRock can't tokenize everything all at once, otherwise they're going to inflate everything, so they have to do it in like small chunks. Yeah. Yep. I mean, back then when governments didn't really dabble with whatever banks did, you really had to research which bank you were putting your money in, because if the bank fails, then you basically lost everything, right? Which is why some countries have your deposit is protected up until this amount by the like federal reserve or central bank of that country or nation. But yeah, looks like we might get a close on this. Humor is my coping mechanism. Ooh, quote unquote protected. I know. Oh man, really can't trust these guys sometimes. But yeah, looks like we're gonna fall even further. We might even reach these lower targets from uh looks like we might get a 30-minute oversold. Let's go back to the 5 minutes. See, what I don't like necessarily about this 5 minute candle, there's like no wick right here. It sort of jumped from here. So I mean that's basically just the volatility. But I don't like that necessarily, like the zero connection between the two, or that the connection's not that great. MVP ribbon does say you're bottoming out, and there is 5 minutes left on the hour, so you are oversold again after just a quick while. I don't think they have that amount. What they should have. Yeah, or if it's a central bank, central bank or reserve or printer, all they need to do is print money, which would inflate things, and technically it would devalue, but nominally they would have been able to pay back what's lost. So we are crossing 77,360. It looks like we could close below this. So we have to frame our ideas. Granted, let's go. I want to go back here. To the liquidation map. So we are killing these guys right now. Looks like they want to go down to at least 76k by the looks of it. And notice how people just entered shorts right now. Like that's what I like about this. It's fairly accurate. Right? People just entered shorts right now. So we're cleaning up this cluster at about 76, and then let's check back what happens. But you're building clusters as high as about 80, well, meaningfully 87k, 80.7k, and then you could go maybe as high as 82k. Yeah, people would try to would do a bank run, and they wouldn't be able to because the debt based system's not going to work, since only 10% of your money is actually being held. The rest of 90% is being circulated. Uh, Here in the Philippines, it's only up to 1 million pesos, so it's only about, how much is 1 million pesos? $20,000. Um, which, I mean, for the average Joe, that's gonna be more than enough, because it's like up to 1 million pesos. But if you have more than 1 million pesos at the bank, you're kind of fucked. Like, you'd actually be toast. Yeah, it doesn't look like we're going to. Now that. Wait, let's go back to the BNB. Oh, really did fall. Let's go back to BNB and see if that long idea could pan out. I mean, it definitely could. Uh, let's make the 1 hour higher time frame, or let's just do 4 hour and 15 minutes for our time frames. I love that. 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised beef sticks with a 2-year shelf life. Funny thing about the beef sticks is that they were processed. But I don't know if I like this idea entirely, so I'm not going to do it just yet. Yeah, look at that. Morning, little fish. Welcome to the show. So there's still 30 minutes on the show. We are looking for a potential bounce again here, right around this region. This would act as sort of a place for a double bounce to occur. So we just got the hourly close. Let's look at what the hour looks like. Probably doesn't look that great. Yep, so let's remove this because it's sort of been canceled. That said, the hour is almost oversold, and you are technically still overall bullish in terms of momentum. So I would just kind of wait for the hour to go oversold before thinking of anything, because this is still within expectations. For those that weren't here earlier, uh, let me just reboot the FA. So we are looking to for Bitcoin to go down to maybe like 76k before it moves up. So this is happening in real time, and you can see people are just entering shorts. This or are immediately just entering shorts, which if they're not careful, they're going to be uh, liquidated liquidated hard. Let's go back to BTC and change this to 24-hour. So we are getting that liquidity hotspot that we were talking about earlier. And now the hotspot is about 79k, so we could visit that fairly soon after we fall maybe down to 76, or this region right here. So I would put an alert just to see what happens when we get there. But overall, I do think that we're going to continue just push to the downside, find some support, head back up. Or, this could be a very ugly McDonald's, and that would suck. Yeah. Took a quick dot short scalp this morning. Congratulations. I'm sure it's panned out. It's like Solana back down to 100. Might hit our stop loss. Although it's kind of all the way down here, but you never know. It is oversold as heck on the 5 minutes. Ondo, I think, is the only position that's probably doing somewhat well. Very minimal drawdown. So right now, the only ones I'm in are Solana, Ondo, and BTC, which not great. Could you please take a look at QNT? Of course. Let's have a look at QNT. Which one do you... Is this USDT? Okay, yeah. It is. Alright. Okay, so I'm not too familiar with this crypto, so you're gonna have to tell me a little bit about it, but immediately I don't like the fact that you have these massive gaps. Oversold on the 15 minutes. A heavy money outflow. But you do want to test your Fluid 09. So I do think right now we're in the process of finding support for a lot of these coins. So my guess would be somewhere at 65.97. Obviously you have volatility to the wick, but my guess is over here. Let's look at a higher time frame. I only ever bought it on spot. Okay, interesting. So we are approaching discount, and I mean, it does seem like we could find some support soon based on the 1 day, because you're bottoming out on your oversold, but you still have some bearish trend strength and money outflow. So I do expect a little bit more downside. So 65.97, 65.62 seems like a decent area to set alerts, and then we have upside targets about 70-ish, right? Your 200-day moving average is really far away, but you always end up going back to your 200-day moving average. Looking at Bitcoin. Okay, here's the bounce. Might actually be an auspicious bounce on the 1 hour, because it's bouncing off the previous day low. If it's able to maintain this, then you've just made a higher low on the 1 hour, and therefore you're more likely to go up. So if you zoom out, it would look like, right, And this actually, you could argue this right here is a inverted head and shoulders, which is interesting, right? Uh, you never know. um, but yeah, guess back to QNT. I'd say wait a little bit. It's hard to tell, but if you've ever only bought it on spot, what's your average price? Do you feel like you're in trouble for this, little fish? Alright, while waiting for that reply, let's just keep looking at what's happening to BTC because that's really where the fun part is. um, Inverted head and shoulders potentially, right? Your neckline is gonna be 78k, so set or 79k. I'd set alerts there. But yeah, little fish. What's your average price for or average entry price for QNT spot? Excuse me. Let's look at gold. How's it doing? I think gold's pumping. Yeah, it's pumping. Silver's kind of doing the same from whatever this was. Okay. Don't you guys love the volatility? Oof. Actually, kind of curious what it looks like on the 1 minute. I know Stock Scalping Samurai does this, but just out of curiosity. Oh, is this Sbeezy? Welcome. A little late to the party, but you know, there we still got about 27 minutes on the show. So yeah, BTC playing out how we expected to, but I wonder where it's going to bottom out for today. Woke up late. Did you have a question for me? Oh, no. I was just saying, oh, we're on the 1 minute. I know sometimes you do the 1 minute. uh but yeah. 3 minutes. Okay, you know what? Let's do 3 minutes for fun. Yeah, look at that. 3 minute. What am I even looking at? Interesting rejection here. Could have taken a scalp short on BTC. Ooh, okay, interesting. Let's fix this up a little bit because I don't think it's as aligned as I'd like it. Okay, hold on. Let's fix this. Channel. Yep, okay. Okay, that looks tighter. Yep, pretty tight. And then extend this a little bit. Okay, yep, that looks tight. It's like a tight channel. That sound. Yeah, we again, our fundamental analysis does place us to go to the 618 here. I'll just keep pulling it up, and I'll keep refreshing it live. Oh, that's a cool name. Hey, Kesso. Yeah, welcome. I do appreciate that the Discord profile picture is yellow, just like Kesso. So, yeah. Actually, I'm curious because, okay, because you guys know how the Philippines, okay, this history, the Philippines was colonized by Spain. So some of our words and some of the things we say are actually Spanish, but because of like the Filipino inflection, we say it wrong, and there are even some words that it's like derogatory, um, in Spanish, but it's like okay or somewhat decent in Filipino, like puto. It's a rice cake that we got from Indonesia. Uh, so do you guys say it as queso or queso? I don't know. But anyways, back to the liquidation map. Sorry, tangent. Uh, your clusters put you about 76,320. If we refresh, we're already headed toward there. So some people are putting in more longs as we go down. So your clusters sort of end at about 76,347. Possibly could go all the way down to 74. And you can see some people are doing some late shorts right here, but you have a huge cluster starting at about 78, so I think we whiplash back to the upside within the next few hours. uh but yeah, back to the actual chart because that's the exciting part. So it wouldn't surprise me if on our 4 hour close we close a little weird because the 1 hour does appear like it's heading oversold, but you know, anything can happen. Hmm. Oh, I was speaking for the past like 3 minutes or 4 minutes. So, anyways, I'll let you guys know if this BNB long is viable. Uh, but so far it's an idea. So, I'm not too stoked on doing it just yet. As well as the fact that uh, Ondo and Solana are still in drawdown, as well as Bitcoin. So, I don't want to put too much strain on everyone's accounts, because I do know you guys are also like taking signals from Lunaire and Nas. So being three positions in drawdown, I also don't want to be too aggressive with longs right now, even though I think longs are probably the way to go. No position. Wait, but didn't you say that you were up $140 earlier from like a quick scalp short? What do you mean no position? $0. What happened? What? Or is that just like a meme photo? That can't be real, right? Like that can't actually be your thing. Oh, I see. Day P and okay, my bad. So for context, because I put like Discord to the side so that you guys get to see more of TradingView, the image goes to the middle of Discord, which is like moved slightly away, so I don't really see the whole picture necessarily. But yeah, congratulations. I hope that, I hope that feeds you. What are you gonna use it on, or are you just gonna compound it? But yeah, I guess since there's only about like 7-ish minutes left, if anyone has any coins they want me to look at or any assets, just let me know, guys. I promise I won't buy it. So yeah, don't be shy. Um, and I'll be here tomorrow for another 2 hours. So today is just an hour 30 minutes because I have to wake up in about six. No, when it's over, I have to wake up about 5 hours so that I can actually travel. All stays in the bankroll. Nice, as it should. Yeah, let's go back. So there they are pumping, pumping, pumping. So push back. So if I go back to the liquidation map, it looks like we did end up wiping out as much as the lows that we can, or at least the ones that are nearby. And you can see that price has now moved away from the short side, and now it's sort of wanting to head to this English. It's sort of headed to the larger cluster. So I would set alerts at about 79 and 80 just to see what happens. Because if you get there and get massively rejected, then you can frame shorts. I know Renair's starting a short near 81k, so you could probably frame a short there. And I would actually maybe take a short at around 85.55 just as a hedge up against my Bitcoin long. But we'll have to see. Let's go back to the charts. I mean, earlier was looking pretty good, but now it doesn't look all that great. Granted, we are in the 3 minutes, so no, it didn't change it, even if we went to the 5 minutes. If it closes up here, which I don't think it will in the next 20 seconds, that would be fun. But if it closes like this, then we can expect a little bit more downside. Yeah, if it closes like that, then downside's basically guaranteed. What is that? What is that? Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. How far down were you saying before reversal? Sorry, I missed that bit. Um, well, Speezy, according to the liquidation level map that we saw earlier, it looked like this was it. Like it said that 76 potentially, but it looked like it stopped. It took a pause abruptly, and then it started moving away from the downside. And now you've got this disgusting move to the upside. So yeah, uh, so what is that? 1 hour after market open, M- tricky to the downside. Now you're back to where you started right before market open. But you know it'll only matter if you can close above 77.9. So if this massive move to the upside doesn't close above 77.9, then we can maybe frame some shorts. But until then, it's just a matter of waiting. Uh, Disgusting move though. I mean, just scaring all the people that went short really late. So, I guess before I go, because there's only about 2 minutes left, 2-ish minutes left. Actually, it's like less than three. I should just say less than three for accuracy. But you can see the price moved, and now we're killing these late shorts. Now we have some late longs coming in from Binance of all places, and now we're setting our sights on the 79K, and then we'll see if that's enough incentive to head to clusters beyond that, like 82K. But only time will tell for those. So let's see what we're looking at again here. You basically engulf the last couple minutes. I think it will be a better visual if we head to say the 30 minutes. Okay, so it hasn't engulfed yet, but we're basically where we started at about 77.9. How's Solana? So Solana went back to 102. I bet Ondo's close. Yep, it's basically near break even. So looks like only BTC and Solana's in drawdown right now. Ondo's looking pretty decent. But yeah. But yeah. So I'm gonna have to close the live here, but essentially set a line on your chart, and we want BTC to close above 77,940 on the hourly, so which would also be the 4 hour, just because we basically want to somewhat make the trend keep on the upside if we want to go for the higher targets in terms of liquidity leverage, which is all the way up to like 80K. But if it continues like this, then we could be just ranging and then possibly head up. Just note that your 1 hour is almost oversold, but it's not a guarantee that you're you're headed up, right? It could possibly keel over. And we drew this inverted head and shoulders on the live, and it could potentially play out, right? Even with a candle close like this, it could start a new candle here, then head up. So I'm not all that worried, but just caution yourselves because this has just been a very interesting week so far. All of this happened in the weekend. I think a couple of this was Monday. This part might have been yesterday. But yeah. With that said, I am Langstrom. Thank you guys for joining me. Let me stop streaming. And I will be here tomorrow, same time, but tomorrow's going to be 2 hours long. And yeah, I hope you guys were able to get something. Hope it provided value. And when it comes to trading, don't forget to use a stop loss. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much. Bye.